Most churches lock their doors at night, but how many are protecting the networks the same way? Today, we're talking about the side of church security that no one sees, but everyone depends on. I want to welcome you to the Faith Secure podcast, where we are watchful, prayerful, and prepared. I'm Dr. Michael Brown, founder of Faith Secure and the host of the Faith Secure podcast. We have another good one for you today. The title of today's episode is Cybersecurity in the Church, Protecting the Digital Front Door. And today's guest is Mr. Cardell Oliver, Chief Technology Officer at Elizabeth Baptist Church in Atlanta. With more than 15 years experience leading enterprise IT operations, cybersecurity, and infrastructure strategy for large multi-campus nonprofit organizations. Mr. Oliver specializes in strengthening cybersecurity posture while aligning technology to mission. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Awesome. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me, Dr. Brown.
All right, no problem at all. We're excited. This episode is going to focus on cybersecurity in churches and what leaders must understand and what they often overlook. You ready to get started, sir?
Ready to get started.
Okay. First, we're going to deal with the digital front door, why churches are targets. So, Mr. Oliver, why should churches take cybersecurity seriously?
Churches now let me start off this way. Technology has become accessible to everybody now. It's at our front door, So it's not something that, people with or churches with a lot of money has to have. Now it could be the 5-member church to the 50,000 member church. And so with that, we have a responsibility as stewards. And that puts us in a place of a digital ecosystem as churches, which means we give online now. We have live streaming. We have membership engagement software. We have remote access at some churches. And what that does, that holds us accountable because we have sensitive data. We have prayer requests that have sensitive information. Some churches have counseling records, and we also have children's records. So it's our job as stewards to protect them, to give our membership that trust.
Absolutely.
With cybersecurity is built on a triad. The triad of the CIA: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So we got to make sure that we have that confidentiality there, protecting what was given to us. The integrity, making sure it's not being, altered. If somebody gives their membership information, it's not being altered. And then availability, having that Sunday service technology running so that people can use their Bible, people can give online and all that. So that's why we have to take cybersecurity serious.
Okay. I'm glad you broke down what CIA is. That actually was a question that I was going to bring up depending on the flow of the conversation. So thank you for breaking that down. So let me ask you this, a basic question. What type of cyber threats do churches commonly face?
So I like to say social engineering, and that's one of the most common ones that can happen if, with my hat looking at it. We allow people through our front door and people can use your computer and sit there, put a USB stick in, and you don't know what's on that USB stick. Phishing attacks, which is emails coming into your system, and you click the link thinking that you may have won something or a request from a fake email account from the pastor. Ransomware, that's a big one. That's a big one all over the world right now.
We're going to address that later. Go ahead.
And then something simple, website defacing. I know that I've known people that have done it just to do it. It's just something fun to prove that they can do that. So there's so many avenues with cybersecurity that we have to protect with our church.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for breaking that down. Well, let me ask you this. Does a multi-campus church increase the digital complexity?
Definitely. Reason why your footprint has expanded, your surface attack has expanded. You have now, instead of one ISP, internet service provider coming into one location, now you have it coming in multiple locations. So you have to protect this location and your primary location. Now your membership database is grown. And if you're live streaming from both locations, now you've opened ports on your network to communicate between the two locations, depending on how you have it set up. So as you expand and grow, your surface attack area has grown,
Mm-hmm.
which
Okay.
can be major, but as long as you have policy in place, it'll grow with you.
Okay. So all right, having said that, what misconceptions do pastors often have about cyber risk?
I would say that it'll never happen to us. We're too small, things like that. Cyber risks are, it doesn't matter the size of your church. It doesn't
Right.
matter. It doesn't matter your denomination, your theology. It doesn't matter any of that. It's looking for vulnerabilities. And
That's right.
it's constantly searching the internet, those ISPs that I just said, they're constantly being hit to see if you have anything open on your network. And so if a pastor is saying that you haven't tested. It may be true that you haven't been attacked at all. That just means you
Right.
haven't tested to see if you're vulnerable. And so you have to be aware of those situations, just the knowing, what G.I. Joe is, knowing is half the battle. Knowing that you have this potential vulnerability and you're able to fix it protects you more instead of making you be proactive instead of reactive.
And I'm going to tell you, and Mr. Oliver, you're actually illustrating a point that I want to bring out from this whole episode, is that just like physical security, cybersecurity, a lot of pastors and board members and church leaders feel like it can't happen here. Just because something hasn't happened doesn't mean it's not possible or probable. So let me ask you this. Is cybersecurity a technical issue or a leadership issue?
It's a leadership issue with technical responsibilities, as in technology. We have the firewalls, we have the endpoint detection system, but leadership provides the budget for this. Leadership provides what's the risk that they could take. And
Absolutely.
So leadership provides what happens next. As a technology person, I can install this firewall, but then you have, let's say, thousands of firewalls to choose from. Which budget you going to choose from? The basic model? Or are you going to go, or can we afford the top, the Bentley of firewalls, five digits? I don't have that one, but they have that. So you have to be able to have a budget talk. You have to have that talk with leadership to know what you can do in cybersecurity to protect the church.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're going to pivot a little bit, and in the next step, we're going to deal with legacy systems, budget constraints, and real-world challenges. Mm-hmm. So you specialize in modernizing legacy systems. So what risk do outdated systems create in churches?
The risks they create, they're unsupported anymore. So a great example is what just happened recently. Windows 10 has been out. I like Windows 10, but it's not supported anymore. They want you to move to Windows 11. So even your church management software can be outdated. Your camera system can be outdated. So by not having what's being supported, opens you up for vulnerability, because you're no longer getting security patches, which is what's also being tested. That's if you have someone, Swordfish is one of the favorite movies I like about technology, even though it's not true how it works. But that's the point. They look for exploits. They look for vulnerabilities. Right. So if you're no longer getting security patches, now though you have holes in your system to allow attackers or allow something into your system that can take you down. And what else? Multi-factor authentication. That is important now. So low legacy systems usually don't have that.
That's right.
And then so you have to grow. Unfortunately, that's why it goes back to the board. The leaders make decisions because they provide the budget for this type of situations. So what you can choose and have.
This is going to lead me. You led me right down that primrose path, Mr. Oliver. This is one of the most critical questions that the listeners and the viewers they want to know. How do churches balance budget constraints with cybersecurity needs? How do you strike that balance?
That's a good one.
Yes.
I think you start off with the basics. And that's a lot of the basics are actually the low-hanging fruit. They're free. Mm-hmm. If you have the latest, technology that can do it, turn on multi-factor authentication. Make sure you have your pass key set up. That now you have your front door, it's a lock on your front door. Verify you have backups. That's important. If you have your church management software on a server, you need to be verifying backups are being happening, is taking place, and that they work. You want to reduce administrative privileges. That's one thing I've when I did some consulting, one person had all the administrative privileges. If that person leaves, then that administrative rights, those passwords, that know-how is gone. So you have to spread the wealth, spread the knowledge of what's going on in the technology department, and then conduct training. So that's the low-hanging fruit. Train your staff, train your leaders on cybersecurity, which will help them out in the long run. So it's not really a discipline thing, it's more of a budget thing to an extent.
Okay.
So it's more discipline than budget, I should say.
Okay, that makes sense. So now let me ask you, how do you translate that technical risk into language that boards and pastors can understand?
So technical risk, you don't go in technical with them, because that'll shoot you down real fast. My experience.
Okay.
So a good example is I wouldn't go in and say we need to segment the network. They're like, what does that mean? They're going to honestly check out. But if you say if staff member brings their laptop and that laptop has a virus and now it's creeping into our server system overnight and we're down on Sunday, what happens? Now you're explaining that there's a ramification of not having this in place.
Right.
Sunday service down, giving now is over. You lost trust with your congregation. So things like that started to happen. So I will always go in as being a steward, understanding what's happening to the not in the technical wise, but what can happen to the overall organization.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So let me ask you this. I'm going to give you a leadership question. Okay. What should a church board be asking its technology leader or you right now?
What should they be asking? Some of the stuff I just said. Are we prepared if we go down tomorrow? Can we be back up before Sunday? Okay. How recent are our backups? Are we prepared as a staff if something happens, if ransomware happens, if we're down, any of that? If we're down at this particular time on a Wednesday, or better yet, if the staff email comes through, do they know what to look for? So prepare them with the knowledge of how to see cyber threats is something they should be asking. Who holds the say so? In a board member, in the board team, who has to say on what's happening with the technology? So if you have an instant response plan or something like that, how does that flow? Because if not, if you don't know what flows, now you're delaying response, and you delay response, that you're now giving let's say a ransomware time to infiltrate the system even more. So what happens next? Who do you call? What is that order of communication when something happens? We just want to make sure the board knows they should ask those questions. Are we ready in the long run?
Okay, that makes sense. And that's actually a good segue into the next segment. We're going to discuss building a resilient cybersecurity posture. So just basic question, what does that look like for a church, Mr. Oliver?
Assume incidents will occur. You can't sit there and think they won't. That's a bad posture. But you want to also build a layer of defense. So you want to have your firewalls, you want to have your endpoint detection, you want to have your pass keys. You want to have multiple steps that you don't want to make it easy for an attack.
Right. And that's right. That's the same thing with physical security. You want to create as much delay as possible. Yes. Okay. So let me ask you this, Mr. Oliver, I'm going to simplify your job a little bit. How important are backups and recovery plans?
Very important. Very important. Backups, I would say that a lot of software has now moved to the cloud. That has been a saving grace for a lot of churches that pay for that. But I do know some churches that still use the client-server method. Backups are very important because that takes away, let's use ransomware, that takes away negotiating to recovery. Because you have a working backup, I don't need to negotiate to pay for this to be back recovered.
Right.
But if
Right.
you don't have a backup, now you're taking a risk, like, to paying this off. And I think in Atlanta recently, we had one for the city. I think they had to pay $1 million or something like that. And so you don't want to go through that headache. You don't want to go through that law, I won't say lawsuit, that issue.
Right.
So being prepared with the backup makes things easier. And then having a recovery plan again shows you what steps needs to be taken. So if it happens at 2 o'clock in the morning, you get alert. Somehow you find out, what steps to take to start recovering your system, having you back up for Sunday, if
Okay.
possible. Mhm.
Okay. So now, what role does staff training play in cyber defense?
Staff training, because that's usually the front door. So staff training is very important. Having phishing tests, which is I love doing them. I love them. So I love sending phishing tests to my staff, to see if they can recognize what's fake and what's real. And then
Right.
once they get that failing grade, it automatically puts them in the class.
Right.
And they hate doing that because I can see if they took the class or not. But staff training protects the organization as a whole, and it protects them at home. That's just something good for them to know, for you to give to the staff, that knowledge of what to look out for when it comes to cybersecurity,
Absolutely.
from emails to potential ransomware, this button, just threats, period. So staff training is that security guard for your network.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense. So let me ask you, what are the biggest vulnerabilities? People, systems, or process?
Hmm. People make mistakes, systems fail, processes is a disruption. So I would say the biggest vulnerability is a process. If you don't have a process in place to fix the mistake, you're in for a crisis. This is now something we could say minor that's going to become to a full-blown crisis because we don't know what to do.
Okay.
Leadership wouldn't know who to call. We could lose trust with our congregation by not knowing that we need to communicate. So
Okay.
having a process in place, telling us step by step what happens if in this scenario, makes life much easier when it comes to a cyber attack or cyber threat for your church. So I would
Okay.
definitely say process.
Process. Okay. So now, how do you improve service reliability while strengthening security?
That's a hard task.
Well, take your time, Mr. Oliver. Take your time and give us the synopsized version, please.
Right. Because one thing, the more restraints you have, the more pushbacks you can have.
Yes,
So
yes.
it goes again back to that training wheel, and then talking to them as stewards of important sensitive data, communication, sensitive data, like we said earlier. So being able to explain, this is why I'm implementing this is why it takes 2 steps for you now to get into your email. This is why after a certain amount of time it's logging you out, so that, again, like the example, if somebody walks to the front door and sit at your computer, they're not automatically on it. It logs you out immediately. So you have
Okay.
to start taking proper steps to end up getting, again, make it less easy for people to, or bots to get into your system. And then by having that strength and that security posture, it makes you more reliable and recover faster.
Right.
So that is very, very important in that industry.
Okay. So now I'm going to give you a practical question, Mr. Oliver. Okay. Now, I'm sure you dealt with churches of all sizes. Okay. So now I'm going to give you a question. If a church, let's just say between 800 and 2,000 members, wanted to strengthen their cybersecurity in the next 3 months or 90 days, where should they start?
I would start again, best practice with password usage. When I would start with the staff, making sure that's the number one thing that they do, because a lot of threats infiltrate password. That's usually the first thing they get. And once you
Yes.
got your password, and it depending on your level in the organization, now they got more information that you may want somebody to have.
That's true. That's true.
Go back and audit those admin accounts. Who was the admin? Get that take that one knowledge of data of information as an admin, and then make sure it's backed up somewhere. Somebody else has the same information. So basically, doing an audit of that.
Okay.
This all in the first month, and verify your backups. If you've been backing up and you're just letting it go, you're just hoping that your backup's working. You never tested it. You haven't put it into another server just to see if it comes back up. I would do those immediately. After that, with a church that size, 800 to 2,000, segment your networks. So you have your staff network VLAN, you have your guest VLAN, you have your Internet of Things, your camera VLAN. So you have all those separated out, which now, even though it's one network, it's now it's their own tunnel. So now they're not, you can't jump into this. I had to guess, I can't go jump into y'all server because while I'm just playing around on the internet. I won't say play around on the internet, or just on the internet on the guest Wi-Fi.
Right.
That's why it's important. And I can give you a real world example. I was, I used to have a computer lab. This was before the VLANs were big. And we would have kids that knew how to just learning how to do cybersecurity. They would go in and just go see what's on the network. And that's what I learned first. Let me delete all these jacks, because the jacks that we no longer use, let me go and take these off. But they were doing that because it was just something fun to do. Okay. So you segment that network out. And then I would start conducting fish training with your staff. And the last thing, I would run a ransomware tabletop exercise that last month. Now I started thinking bigger. Now that we done got the core stuff out the way, now I started thinking bigger, just protect the organization. So do a ransomware tabletop where you can learn and you do scenarios with the leaders and with the staff, and just don't put a ransomware actually on a computer. You're actually just mentally talking about it and sharing how do we move forward with that. Then once you present to the leadership, and then now you should be able to get a better budget. Okay. Instead of doing something like that, now they see the threats, what can happen with our church, with the organization, by doing these tabletops about ransomware and cybersecurity, period.
Okay, I'm glad you brought up ransomware, Mr. Oliver, because now I'm going to give you a scenario that involves a ransomware wake-up call. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here's the scenario. A church staff member clicks on a phishing email, which you have talked about. Okay, within hours, key systems are encrypted. Giving records, membership databases, and internal documents are now inaccessible. Sunday services are approaching. What stands out to you immediately?
So it stands out to me immediately. I would probably no training has been done with that staff member. Mm-hmm. They didn't recognize the phishing attack. Absolutely. There's no segmentation done on this network because that staff computer got attacked, and then it was able to even before that. Mm-hmm. That password was able to infiltrate all the key systems. So you got your giving rate, you got your membership database. Documents are now inaccessible. And then that means there's no segmentation that's separating the staff from the main service to monitor if this virus coming through the network. And then Sunday's approaching. So now you're in a rush and a panic. And that goes back to the triad. The availability is about to be gone because you're locked out. Okay. Confidentiality is threatened because now stuff is data has been infiltrated. We don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be shared. How they're going to use this data. And then the integrity of data, it's encrypted now. So now we can't even verify. So that's a scary situation. It's happening more often than people see.
Okay, well, Mr. Oliver, let me ask you, what determines whether that becomes a disruption or a crisis?
Preparation.
Okay.
Goes back to preparation. So if you're prepared, you done ran those table talks about ransomware, you now know what you need to do. So taking the computer off that as somebody hit the phishing email and something weird happened. Taking that computer offline immediately, that's a disruption. Or you have a backup that's already set, you can take it out, you upload a new backup, that's a disruption. However, if none of that is in place, you communicated with the staff or communicate with the membership. That's a disruption. But if you're not doing any of that, that's when it becomes a crisis. So now you're panicking. You don't know what I just do next. And
Okay.
and the thing with viruses and with any type of malware, the longer it's on your system, the more damage it can do. So
Okay.
if you're prepared, you can be able to take care of it and do steps to try to beat it from getting to taking you down on Sunday.
Okay. So let me ask you, how should leadership respond in the first 24 hours after this incident occurred?
First 24 hours, the computer that has been, that he infiltrated, take it
Mhm.
offline. Don't delete it, but get it off the network because you could make it get that back. And forensics may want to know if you call the criminal investigation agency, sometimes FBI, local authorities, they may want to get on it. Depends on how bad it is. Call your
Okay.
insurance company because some you could get cybersecurity insurance. That way, if anything's happening, you're covered. And then start communicating,
Hmm.
communicating with the staff, communicate with your members, let them know like you're technically obligated to let them know that this has happened and we're working on it. We have because we planned this out. We have steps to prepare for this type of situation. Because if you don't communicate, now you're losing that trust with your congregation. That's something you don't want to do because we're stewards. So
That's
that's
right.
that first 24 hours.
Okay. So now what let's highlight that. How important is that communication piece in maintaining trust?
Communication, communication, if it's heard from someone other than the leadership,
Hmm.
that always looks bad.
Yeah.
Like because now you're like you knew what's going on, but I heard from some Sally Mae that this has happened with my database and my system. So with my record, so now you put yourself in a compromising situation of can we trust you as a leader? Can we
Yeah.
trust you with my giving? Can we trust you with my children's records? You know, now will this information now be all over the web? And so communicating now gives you a step ahead of the wildfire. It's not
Right.
controlled communication, it's calm communication. And that's what leadership has to do. So with their communication, keeping it calm and being collective with it
Hmm.
brings down the ease, the anxiety with your memberships, and they trust you more like, okay, we know this is happening. Thank you for letting us know. We trust that we'll get this back and get this corrected.
And just like in any relationship, communication is key. And you want to get out in front of that thing and let them know that yes,
Exactly.
we had this issue, but we're on top of it.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So now if donor data is compromised, Mr. Oliver, how does that affect the reputation and liability?
Whew, that's a good question. Well, it affects the reputation. One that shows that again we weren't prepared.
Hmm.
We weren't being good stewards with the information. We didn't really think. We took that mindset that this would never happen to us. And so now members are now seeing that their records are compromised. And if you was holding credit card information, now that's exposed. And now the whole legal battle with banks and all that stuff that's approved. That
Yes.
this is legit. So now that's such a loaded question. But I would say this one important thing with that is when I talked about insurance, is
Hmm.
that with insurance part, there's still steps that you have to follow in order
Right.
to even be covered with this type of situation. So if
Absolutely.
your donors get exposed, or did you do the proper steps to protect them legally? And if you did, this may be on you instead of on your insurance. And that's again, that's that
Mm.
trust, that's that look that they don't want.
All right. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you for a practical takeaway here. What are three preventative measures every church should implement immediately?
Preventative measures. I don't want to sound redundant. Check your
No, you're
passwords.
not,
Yeah.
because I'm gonna tell you. Let me just help you out here.
Uh,
Repetition. I'll tell you, repetition that helps here. So
yeah.
that's why, yeah. So go ahead. It's okay.
Get those multi-factor authentications on all your devices, all your computers, all your logins to your church network. your church email accounts. You want that to have multi-factor authentication and pass keys. Again, if you have backups, test your backups.
Mhm.
If you're using a church management software that's in the cloud, communicate with them. Confirm that they have backups that are working. Know their policy. If you don't have it on in your system as a client server and they're doing it, question them. What are you doing with our backups? How fast can we be restored so we know that? And again, conduct those tests, train your staff, conduct those phishing simulations. If you don't know how to do it, there's companies out there that do it for you, and
Right.
they are
Absolutely.
making it even more harder to pass. And
Mhm.
do those. Those are the big three I would get done immediately. Make sure, because that again, that's protecting your front door immediately.
All right. And I'm gonna tell you, Mr. Oliver, repetition deepens the impression, one of my pastors used to always
Oh,
say.
I like
So
that.
I purposely have organized these questions. I wanted you to repeat yourself, so it's fine. All right. So now let me ask you this as we get into the closing segment here. I'm going to talk to you about technology as stewardship, as you've mentioned earlier in this episode. I'm going to give you a reflection question. How do you see cybersecurity aligning with church mission rather than distracting from
Cybersecurity protects the continuity of the ministry.
it? Mm-hmm.
It makes sure, again, it keeps that trust with the memberships. It keeps that
Mm-hmm.
trust even as in the whole in the community that if I go to this church, I know that my data is protected. I know that my child
Mm-hmm.
is protected. I know that my stuff that I'm sharing in prayer requests and online to the counselor is protected and safe.
Right.
Um, it's
Absolutely.
important. It's important to protect their privacy. We don't think about that, as a church. We think, Sunday service, choir, preaching, that, but you don't you forget about the other ministry aspect of it that they're doing. That they're saving lives, saving souls, and people are hurting, but they don't want everybody to know that they're hurting.
Right.
Sometimes
Right.
people are smiling, but they're hurting. And so, as
Yes. That's
cybersecurity
true.
specialists, we gotta protect that information. We gotta show that they could trust us
Right.
and trust the organization.
That's so well said. Now, what advice would you give to pastors who are overwhelmed by technology, who are just technophobes? They're just what advice would you give those pastors?
Best advice I would give is don't don't try to learn the tool. It's
Okay.
not your job to learn the tool,
Okay.
but understand the risk.
Okay.
If you
Okay.
understand the risk, now you can navigate better in these situations. So you want to know: Are we protected? Are we prepared? Who's accountable? So that flow that
Mm-hmm.
empowers the technology leader now to do the work. So it takes some. The pastor has a heavy load. That's one
Yes, he
load they don't have
does.
to bear.
He or she does. You're right.
Yes, yes. So that's something they don't have to bear. They can put on that technology leader to take care of that. As long as he or she knows: Are we protected? Are we prepared? Who's accountable? That should give them, be able to sleep in terms of cybersecurity that this is covered,
Okay.
because there are thousands of tools out there, and you look at those red lines and blue and yellow lines, you're going to be confused. You don't have to know that.
Okay, all right. So let me ask you this, Mr. Oliver. There may be other CTOs and church cybersecurity officers that may see this episode. What's your advice for them to better advocate for cybersecurity at the board executive level in the church?
Don't speak in technical terms.
Okay.
Speak again as a mission impact. This is what the mission of the church, and this is how this will be affected if we don't implement this tool, this thing. But
Okay.
don't keep it mission, not technical. Um, do your research. Don't
Hmm.
I wouldn't go in with assumptions. There's
Okay.
data out there. There's data out there that shows how this can affect the impact. Even though, like we said earlier, that this has never happened to us, but it
Mhm.
shows that even multi-billion-dollar companies is happening to them that has a very robust cybersecurity,
Mm.
policy and system. Cybersecurity, cybersecurity looks for vulnerability, looks for low-hanging fruit. It don't matter.
That's
Again, it don't matter your size. So being able to share that with them, with that board, and let them know what's happening, what could happen, how it could affect the ministry of our church,
mhm.
is how you should always approach.
Okay. So what mindset shift will mostly strengthen churches digitally?
Don't be reactive, be proactive.
You're preaching my language, Mr. Oliver. You're preaching my language, sir.
Because you don't want it to happen, and then now we're going to fix it because it's too late now. You're
Okay.
compromised. You're
Right.
compromised. But if you're proactive, you're prepared. You have that disruption instead of a crisis, as stated earlier. So be proactive with it with cybersecurity.
All right. Now, for a final takeaway, Mr. Oliver, if you could leave one message with church leaders about cybersecurity, what would it be?
We have a job again as stewards to protect our congregation,
Mm-hmm.
to protect our members, protect our guests, protect anything that's on our network, to give them an environment that they feel safe to be in. Because everyone's connected right now. You're from your
Yes.
phone to your watch to the rings and bracelets. You're
Yes.
connected, and so you have to give them that comfortability let them know that they're safe. And it's as long as you follow again that triad. In any cybersecurity course you take, they're gonna always talk about that triad:
Yes,
confidentiality,
sir.
integrity, and availability.
That's right. You're right. You're 100% right.
Yeah, it's not a technical framework. It just should be your mission, your mindset when it comes to cybersecurity. It aligns perfect with church's mission, to serve faithfully and lead with integrity.
All right. You're right. And I'm going to tell you, Mr. Oliver, that's the reason why I wanted to bring you on this episode. I wanted to drive home the point that churches just doesn't have physical doors. It has digital ones, and both deserve intentional protection.
Yes.
That's the point I wanted to drive home. So, Mr. Oliver, I want to thank you for stopping by the Faith Secure podcast and sharing your subject matter expertise. You did an outstanding job, sir.
Thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to talking more with you.
Yes, sir. Oh, you're going to come back. This is not a one-off. I'm going to bring you back. All right. So just stick around for a second while I close. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. And I want to thank you, the viewers, for joining us on this episode of the Faith Secure podcast. If today's conversation challenged or encouraged you, please share it with the church leader who you feel needs to hear it. To learn more about training, assessments, or building a safer church, you can connect with us on all the social media platforms or connect with us directly at mdbconsultingagency.com/faithsecure. Until next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, stay watchful, prayerful, and prepared. God bless.